Hey guys, it's Ty from Table Flip Foundry. I've got a new tutorial for you today. If you have Lychee Pro, a bunch of bases to support, and not enough time, I got you covered. Let's take a look.
We're going to begin with the cones of calibration by Table Flip Foundry.
Ty from Table Flip Foundry.
Ty from Table Flip Foundry.
Massive shout out to Ty from Table Flip Foundry.
Ty, thank you so much. Guys, go check out Table Flip Foundry.
Okay, so today we are looking at a base from Fleshcraft Studios for their October 2023 release. Sometimes when you load a base directly into the build plate, you'll notice that they're kind of vertical. We don't want vertical. So we're going to go to rotate and click on plate. We're going to select the bottom of the base and that's going to lay it flat on the plate. Next, we're going to go to rotate and we're going to hold shift. We're going to click it up twice. 1, 2. So this is a 60-degree incline. I found that this works really well. It keeps a nice clean edge all the way around. If you have a perfect circle, it's going to hold that perfect circle very well. I use the magic button to lift and add my raft, so I turn off all of the other options except for raft, and then we get our lift and raft. Okay, so if you're familiar with my double row method, the principle is the outside edge is slightly visible when the base is laying flat on a table. So we want to do as little damage to that edge as possible. So on the outside edge, we're adding medium supports, which are 0.28s using my settings. Just behind the outside edge, we're going to add a second row. So that's the double row. That second row is going to do the bulk of the work. We want to do some heavy lifting with the second row. So that second row is going to be heavy supports. We're going to be able to place all of these without manually placing hardly any supports on this at all. We're going to use a new feature in Lychee called projection support placement. So you have to have Lychee Pro in order for this to work, but we're going to start with start support projections. Now you have three options here. The one that I use for this is surface crease with a 3-degree angle. What this does is this will allow me to select any polygon on the model, and it will select every polygon connected to that as long as it doesn't change angle more than 3 degrees. In this case, the bottom of this is perfectly flat, so there is no angular change. Sometimes you might find that there'd be a little section that didn't select properly. You can then go in with the sphere and just brush the selection you want. You just have to be careful not to select the sides of the model when you do that. All right, so here we get down to the nitty-gritty of it. We are going to first look at the border, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to change your offset to 0.2. I want you to change your interval to 0.8. I want you to change your presets to medium, which are my 0.28 tips. And I want your Z influence to be 3.1. The island influence isn't so important for this. Okay, so what we've created is this row of mediums around the outside edge of the base. The lower portion of the base is the most important, and so we have the highest density of supports there. You'll notice there's a little section missing. We'll have to place a couple manual supports because of the shape, but that's easy enough. We can do that after. Second, we want to look at our infill. So that's all of these heavy supports you see in the center. Now, when you do the infill, you can have Z influence, but when you use the random type, which is what we're using here, there is no Z influence. I really hope Lychee adds this feature because it will take one of the steps of this process out. But right now they don't have any Z influence. What that means is that the density of the supports will change based on how high up the Z axis they are. That's why we have fewer medium supports on the outside edge at the top and more supports on the outside edge at the bottom, because we're applying an influence from the height of the Z axis. So in this case, we want a 0.7 offset. So that's gonna take the infill and make sure it's 0.7 millimeters away from the edge. And we're going to apply a certain interval. The way the interval works is it's indicating the minimum the minimum distance that the next support would go. So if I have a support, the closest that next support can be is 2.8 and no closer. The bigger I make this interval, the less supports there'll be. The distance will be farther apart. The smaller I make it, the more supports. In this case, 0.28 is fine. I actually like this. But we can take a look. When I raise it up, you see less supports. When I raise it down or lower it down, you see way more supports. Now for a base this size, 118 supports is a lot, so we don't want to do that. So for this size, we're doing 2.8. Now, in your case, you may look at this and you may make a different decision, and that's totally okay. It's up to you. I'm really happy with this. But with our double row method, it's really important that we have a higher density of supports near the bottom third or so, down here. We just have more supports on the bottom edge. The lower portion of the model is the part that matters most, we'll say. So I'm going to go ahead and place these, but you notice the random doesn't give me that density like we're looking for. And so let me add these couple of mediums here real quick. Just keep an eye out just for stuff like this on your own. So what we're going to do is we're going to, on the next projection, we're going to add our second row and add something with the little Z influence to it. So we're going to go back to previous supports. I'm not sure why it's doing this. You can just ignore this for now. It doesn't hurt anything. We're going to go back to border, but this row is going to be the heavy supports, and we don't want the heavy supports right on the edge. So the way we're going to solve that is we're going to change the offset to 0.6 millimeters. So that's going to push this second row right off the edge a little bit. And then we also want to change the interval to 1.2. Having heavy supports so close together is a little extreme, so we want to space them out just a little bit. But you'll notice they're still being affected by that Z influence, and so we have more of these supports at the bottom and less at the top. We're then going to change the supports to heavy supports, so now we have heavy second row, but you'll notice we still have that randomized infill. So what we're going to do, in order to get our higher density of supports on that bottom third, on this pass, we're going to change to grid. Then grid is allowed to work with Z influence. So if we change the Z influence, you can see the grid will, let me change some interval here. So you can see it a little better. So when we take away the Z influence, you're going to see a pretty square grid, right? For this, we don't necessarily need a square grid. A lot of the stuff from like the halfway point up is almost not even necessary. And so we're using a lot of supports and making a lot of contacts with the model that are just going to make it hard to remove and waste your resin. So we do want some Z influence here. So we're going to go ahead and kind of change this influence a bit. And you can kind of see it's spreading out. We still keep this high density down towards the bottom. We have lower density near the top. And this is what we're looking for. Now the intervals also work with the grid. So that's the spacing on the actual grid itself. So you can play with these settings to find something you like that seems appropriate for the size and shape of the base you're working with. This method isn't only for round bases. It'll work on square bases. It'll work on any shape. You can still apply these principles to that exact whatever application you have. So I'm going to go ahead and mess with this a little bit. I want a little more Z influence here. I want a few more supports. So now you can see I've got more supports on this bottom third where I want them. And then I have a couple of supports at the a couple of different notches on the way. Now you might ask, why don't you just do this? Why did I also do the random? Well, I found that because of these straight lines of supports, you get a wavy bottom. It doesn't quite hold on the way you would want. And so we want a little bit of random scattering of medium supports in there as well. Now that we've got our new settings, we're going to apply this. And now what we're finding is that we have a nice heavier density of supports at the bottom. We've got a little fewer supports at the top. We've got a nice clean double row method here. This is done. That's it. So just a couple of clicks. You don't have to place a single support by hand unless it misses like one or two. With a quick and easy workflow, once you know the settings, you can have a base done in less than a minute. And that's it, you guys. I hope you liked this tutorial. Thank you so much for everybody in our community for being so great. If you have any interest, come join our Discord. That's discord.gg/tableflipfoundry. Best community on the internet, period. I know everybody says that, but I mean it when I say it. I love you guys very much. Happy printing. Bye.